the last section, we spoke a little bit more about justify content with Flexbox and what it does to some elements within a container. We spoke about flex end, center, space between, and then space around as well. So in this section, we're going to figure out how to actually apply these to our particular case, styling our header. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So back on track, we're focusing on the header. We have our profile image on the left, which we still have to create these things, so don't worry, we'll get to that. And then we've also got some stacked content on the right-hand side, the 2 lines of text. So the interesting dynamic here is that we want to line up the 2 lines of text so they stack on top of each other, but both lines of text need to be next to the image. So as a solution, I'm going to suggest that we take the following approach. We'll wrap both the image and the text, the 2 text tags, with 2 separate views. So one view to wrap the image, and then one view to wrap the 2 text tags inside of here. Then we can use the justify content of flex start to get both these items to push up to the left-hand side of the container here. Just one quick issue though, Everything we've been discussing about justify content has mentioned that we use it for positioning elements in the vertical or up and down direction. So how are we going to use justify content right here to line up items on the left and right direction like I just suggested? And that's basically my lead in to one of the last confusing Flexbox items we need to discuss, the idea of flex direction. So first, I want to very quickly remind you that back in one of the previous sections inside of our card section, we added on a property flex direction of row right here. So we've kind of already done the wire up for this, and now we're just kind of going back and discussing exactly why we did that. Okay, so flex direction property. So here's what flex direction does. The justify content rule can be used to apply to either vertical or horizontal layout, so either direction. The direction that it will apply to is determined by the flex direction rule. With React Native, the flex direction rule defaults to column. So by default, all of the justify content rules that we place all over the place apply to the vertical positioning of items. If we want to make it apply to the horizontal layout of items, however, we can change flex direction to row instead. When we change it to row, it then turns flex direction to spacing items in the horizontal direction. So this is exactly how we're going to solve our layout issue. So here's the plan. We're going to create 2 separate views for the header, like we previously discussed just a minute ago. One is going to wrap the image, and the second one is going to wrap the 2 text tags. Then on the card section, which we already created, we will give it the properties flex direction of row and justify content flex start. So flex direction row is going to say, hey, all of the items inside card section should lay themselves out going left to right instead of top to down, or top to bottom, excuse me. And then justify content of flex start will mean push those items all the way up to the start edge of the container, which will be the left-hand side in this case. So again, we have already gone ahead and added these 2 properties to our card section, so that is completely done. Everything should work as we expect because we added these 2 properties. One last thing, we also need to make sure that we know how to lay out our 2 lines of text vertically within the view. So that's one more little challenge we got to do. So we're going to also introduce the idea of a text container. So the text container is going to be just the view tag that we said we would use to wrap the 2 text tags. Then on the text container, we'll say that it should have a flex direction of column, so it should lay out its items top to bottom, and it should have a justify content of space around. And remember what space around does. It says lay out equal spacing between all of the elements within this container. So we have 2 text tags in here. We will take some equal amount of white space and allocate it between the top, the middle, and the bottom of those 2 text tags. So that's why we're going to use justify content of space around on that view container section. All right, so we've now spent a lot of time talking about Flexbox and how we're going to lay out this header. Again, Flexbox is really the one rule or the one great tool we have for doing layout with React Native. So it's very important that you have at least some reasonable idea of how Flexbox layout works. And that's why I wanted to have a little bit of an expanded lecture on it. So let's take all these rules, all these strategies that we've now looked at, and apply them to our header in the next section.